Welcome everyone, welcome to one, welcome to all. It is a pleasure having you all here this morning, and I know that you would all agree with me that it is lovely weather for a focus on agriculture. Before, before we begin today's experience, we will start with a short opening ceremony. Firstly, I invite Mr. Mervyn Lord, General Manager of Grenada Development Bank, to share some brief remarks with us.
Microfinance is a universal tool supporting rural development and small economies like Grenada. Agriculture, that important sector, became an important target for microcredit since in 1965, when the government saw it fit to establish or to create the Grenada Agricultural Bank. Anybody know of that? Huh? Grenada Agricultural Bank. Now, the Grenada Development Bank. Now, over the years, the sectors in the economy was diversified. And although agriculture remained very important, agriculture no longer was the mainstay in our economy in terms of contribution to the GDP. Of course, that does not reduce its importance. Even when the Grenada Development Bank was formed in 1965, agriculture was its only sector. So basically 100% of the portfolio was agriculture. Like the contribution in GDP, the contribution to the bank's portfolio has also reduced with the diversification of other sectors. Now, as a bank, we recognize that there are significant opportunities for the growth of this sector through, and very important, youth involvement, value added, and the use of technology. And I was telling someone this morning, for us to get youth involved in agriculture, we must change. Youths have to see a road, a route, a passageway to wealth. And it cannot be the same hard work like that our grandfather and grandparents used to do with a little income. Now I am quite aware that the government also recognize and see the importance of agriculture, because during the 2021 budget presentation, the Minister of Finance noted that the agriculture sector, and I will quote, already showing signs of strong recovery, is one of the few sectors that offer the greatest potential to expedite our economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So there we have it. Agriculture is now the most important sector to recover this economy. Now the minister reiterates that the opportunity exists, and I will quote again, to achieve a modern agriculture sector that includes value added, youth involvement, the application of relevant technology, capacity building, research and development, and the adaptation of climate change. Now in the bank, we realize that one of the major problems in financing agriculture was what we call in the bank collateral or security. And that arises because of land ownership issues. Some persons own the land, but did not have the title document. So more possessory title. And some persons did not own the land, they leased the land. I am happy to say that a solution was found in terms of collateral. And GDB signed off recently to the Eastern Caribbean Partial Guarantee Scheme, where you now have an option to use that guarantee scheme as the collateral, as the security. And they can guarantee up to a loan of $300,000, 75% of that. So you can have up to $225,000 guaranteed. So no longer an excuse for financing should be inadequate security. Now, while investment is earmarked for this sector, financial management and record keeping has been a major, major challenge. For many farmers, farming is a hobby. Farming needs to be a business. And there are specific things you do when you are actually running a profitable and viable business. And we must see farming as that. I will just tell you as it relates to how the bank is performing with non-performing loans. And just to tell you the importance of agriculture and farmers really understanding how to have the farm as a business. Now, a non-performing loan is a loan that is over 90 days in arrears, right? In banking, once the loan reaches 90 days, it is now called a non-performing loan, and you cannot recognize income. So it is like a dead asset. Nothing is happening. So no institution, no financial institution wants non-performing loan. Now the GDP, in the early 2000s, we were over 40%. So almost half of our portfolio was non-performing. I'm happy to say that at the end of the year last year, we were 2.16. There is no other development bank in the region have that quality of portfolio. But agriculture, very important, is still at 14%. Fishing, very, very important, it's still at 29%. We think that what we are doing here today can be the start to reduce those kinds of figures. Now, this workshop emphasized the bank's continued commitment to the sector as we partner with various stakeholders, including the Ministry of Agriculture.
When it comes to managing cash, and it's something that we have a problem with in financial institutions, when it comes to debt and managing debt. For persons with loans, even if it's a personal loan, this is just free advice. When you don't pay your loan on time, those extra days add interest charges to your payment. Yeah? They have in banking what they call a daily factor, which is a daily interest rate. Or not interest rate, interest dollar value, based on your interest rate. Yeah? That daily factor gets added onto your loan every day you're in arrears. So even if you pay your monthly installment, and you're late, that daily factor has already been added in for the days that you didn't pay.
You know, I hesitate to use the word farmer, because quite frankly, we have to get beyond the idea of what a farmer is. And I think in his presentation, I think my brother did an excellent job of saying what the future should be with farmers. And essentially, we're talking about businessmen and businesswomen, that we should have. Farming is conducted by businessmen and businesswomen. And that is why we are here today, to speak about that. You know, in your address, you did speak of the role of agriculture. You know, we spoke about GDP, we spoke about livelihoods. You didn't mention the words, but we speak of food security. Those are the three big things that agriculture contributes to. And you did mention GDP and the fact that many persons say that our contribution is not as high as others. But the fact is, I think all of us recognize that we need to look at how we calculate and what we input into calculations of GDP, because it is my view that the role of agriculture is way, way undervalued with respect to GDP. So that is something I want to do. But we look at agriculture and the role of agriculture in our society. You know, livelihoods, the communities, rural development. Rural development will not happen unless we address agriculture. Look at food security. Look at COVID. What took place in COVID? Did we not have the sector, we would have been in much worse situation than we found ourselves in at the time with respect to feeding the nation. I want to applaud GDP for this initiative this morning. I want to applaud you for bringing us together to speak of agriculture as a business. But we have to go beyond this. We have to take our entire society with us, because I've always argued that the view of agriculture is not only what farmers see agriculture as, it is also what our society as a whole sees as the role of agriculture. And I want to applaud you for signing the Eastern Caribbean Guarantee Scheme by way of dealing with the issue of collateral and lack of proper collateral. And sometimes also, this what we are essentially addressing here, lack of an approach by the farmers that addresses that issue. I remember when I came into agriculture, I had a view that GDP should be doing more. And by that I meant GDP should be giving more loans. But then GDP can only give loans if they have money, and they can only have money if these loans are performing loans, as you indicated. And that is what we have to address. How do we get our loans to be performing? How does farmer A ensure that he pays his loan back so that farmer B can walk into the bank tomorrow morning and there's money in the bank? Because if the bank continues on a high level of non-performance, and I want to congratulate you for getting it to where it is now, if we continue on the path of non-performance, then there will be no loans for anyone in the future. So how do farmers run their businesses is what you're here to speak of today. How do farmers, agribusinessmen as I call them, ensure that their businesses are run on principles such that if they're not making money, it is going to make no sense? Record keeping, you know, the issue of pricing. I had a major discussion yesterday with our colleagues on pricing. How does a farmer know he or she is making money or not making money? You mentioned, my dear brother, about farmers seeing it as a hobby. Well, a hobby is a thing you do without regard to how much money you make or don't make. And if you run your farm as a hobby, I dare say you may be running your farm into the ground. So we have to run the farm. You can enjoy your business, but run it as a business. And that is what I urge all of us, not only persons in the room, because I hope the extension, I was telling Lauren that you should partner with Ms. Joseph and Mr. Lord and others to take this message around the country. Because farmers in every nook and cranny, business persons in every nook and cranny of the country must hear that message. But not only hear the message, you have to sit with them and show them how you get to that stage. The agricultural sector has to be modernized. We have to embark on a campaign of modernization of the agricultural sector. My dear brother Lord mentioned youth in agriculture. You mentioned the fact that we have to get technology involved in agriculture. And you mentioned the fact that we have to add value. Those are some of the elements needed to be addressed in order to modernize agriculture. Young people are not climbing the mountain with a water boots and a cutlass anymore and come down with a bunch of fig on their back. I applaud the farmers who do it. I have been to many parts of the country where farmers, guys in their 60s, climb the mountain, and I am there panting behind them. How the hell they do it, I have no idea. But I guarantee you this, young people today, they're not doing that. They want a modernized agricultural sector. They want fancy things like hydroponics and aquaponics and having 500 and 600 sheep in a liquor place because you have, as me and my brother, Brother Sinclair was talking about, because it's modernized. And the technology exists. There's a good bunch of young people in livestock in the Ministry of Agriculture led by Dr. Cummins. They are looking at modernization of the livestock sector. Lauren and her team looking at modernization of the agronomy division. But we have to have our nation, our agribusinessmen, agribusinesswomen, GDP, and all other institutions on board with the modernization. You know, people debate, and sorry for being a little bit lengthy, people debate about, is it tourism or is it agriculture? That is a non-debate. It is both. The tourists in the hotels and the restaurants eat it, and we supply it. One of our major challenges is to produce sufficient in order to supply, not only in terms of quantity, but in quality and in the products that we produce. We are a small island developing state. We don't have vast expanses of land. We can't compete in some products. We have a comparative advantage in tourism because we have beaches and we have an environment that is attractive to tourism. We also have comparative advantage in some of the products that we can produce. Not all. For example, sauersup. Sauersup is an expensive product that people pay money for, and we don't need large tracts of land. So there are products that we have comparative advantage in. We can partner with the hotels, and I want to applaud some of the organizations in Grenada. There's a women's organization that does it. Partner with the hotels, the restaurants. One of the biggest complaints you get from these institutions is that this week they can get pak choy, and next week they can't get it. Because the farmer believes he made enough money last week, so he's not producing it next week. Consistency of supply. We also need consistency of quality. You know, I was amazed in the US when somebody told me one time at McDonald's, when they buy tomatoes for their burgers, they want a specific size because it fits on the bun exactly. So quality. We need to ask, what quality do you need? And we need to get the science applied to all of this in order to have it delivered. So, for example, technology, extension officers, there is no reason why the extension services can't tell us how much tomato we will have on the market next week, Tuesday. It's a small place. You have to have your gadgets and your input. Will I pass by Farmer Lord, going to have 20 pounds of tomato next week? You put it in, it goes into our database, and we know what is going to be available for the hotels and the restaurants. The point I'm making is application of technology. The point you were making, my dear brother. Modernization of the agricultural sector has to be a priority going forward. So, I've said enough. I want to thank you, my dear brother Lord, and the GDP. But here's what I want to say. This has to go beyond GDP. It has to go to all financial institutions. How do they make it as easy to get a farmer some investment, some capital, as easy as it is to get a bus on the road? I know the challenge, but it's easier for me to walk in and get a bus tomorrow than to walk in and get 3 pigs and 10 cows and some goats and some crops. I am not suggesting it's a simple matter, but I'm suggesting that we have enough brains in Grenada to figure out the solution to that problem.
As Minister mentioned, one of the critical elements of financial management and financial success is not just understanding how much money you make, Because most people can tell you what you make. Yeah? But what has been the cost of your inputs? How are you paying yourself for your labor? Yeah? And that's one of the reasons why separating your business finance and personal finance is so important. What we find business people doing is that every time they need $100, they take it. Yeah? Pay yourself a salary. There was one time you can't find tomato nowhere. And then 2 weeks after, everybody had tomato. Yeah? How is this managed? And how is that impacting the profitability of the business? Remember, farming is a business. Yeah? Farming has to be seen as a business. Look at this and tell me what you see. It's a tank. It's called a cash flow tank. Is there anything about this that stands out to you? When it comes to money, you always want the money coming in to be more than what's going out. Yeah? That's the only way the tank could fill. Yeah? If you have a tank with a leak, like a regular water tank, if the water pressure going into the tank is higher, heavier, the tank would still full. Not so? Even if some of it is leaking. Yeah? So what we want when it comes to money is that your income should always be more than your expenses. Yeah? Your cost of production should always be less than the monies you're making. If you're spending more than you're making, well then I have to ask you where the rest of the money coming from. Yeah? Because you have to be able to maintain your production levels. Yeah? So the question is, as farmers, and even the extension officers say they're farmers, and I love that, do you know your cost of production? Why would you continue to operate an unprofitable business? For how long would you be able to operate an unprofitable business? Why should a financial institution be expected to maintain an unprofitable business? Would you put your own money into an unprofitable business? So here are some mindsets that need to change. Marketing is as important as production. Anybody disagree with me? Mr. Prince, you agree or you disagree?
I agree.
100% agree. Anybody disagree with this? Marketing is as important as production. So comments?
Yeah, I agree.
You agree? The second one, the record is as important as the sale.
I agree again.
Yeah? Because at the end of the day, we'll come to that somewhere. I wouldn't say more on that. And then, well, before this one all morning, farming is a business. Farming is a business. One of the things we encourage in any business is to keep your money separate. Keep your money separate. What belongs to the business is not yours. Yeah? One of the first principles that they teach you in accounting is the business is separate from the owner. Yeah? So you might be the owner manager, but the business is a separate entity. Yeah? And so we always encourage to create a separate account, talking bank, credit union, whatever, to manage your business. Yeah? It could be in your name still, but create a separate account to manage your business. Yeah? Because typically what happens when farmers or business people, especially small businesses, don't have financial records, we ask them for bank statements. And so pass all your money through the bank, all the credit unions. Even if you have to go in and deposit $2,000 and take it back out. Yeah? It shows income. Yeah? It shows that there's money coming in. But when we see a transaction in January, and then in November you deposit $50, there's nothing that we can use to say that the business is making money. Yeah? Pass all the money through the basket. What are your costs of production? How much does it cost you to operate your business? It says farm, but every business. Do you know how much it costs you to operate?
Yeah. We have some animal farmers, for instance, they would grow 1 or 2 bulls. And if you value the cost of growing 1 or 2 bulls, growing 5 or 6 is not going to cost much more. You see? So sometimes the value of the bull or the amount you're expecting to get for your meat, or the amount you intend to make per year, the reason why you have to sell your cows so expensive. The thing is, if you had only expanded
In the volume.
you'd have been able to secure the same amount of money with less stress in terms of having to market that at such a price. So sometimes some individuals who would grow 1 cow, to me, is not an adequate investment, where if you grow 2 or 3 cows, it wouldn't add too much more to grow the 2 or 3 cows together with the one that you presently have. So I think this is one of the areas that some farmers have to look into in terms of meeting their demands.
And one of the things that I think we don't really think about in the Caribbean, not just in Grenada, is that when those animals pass their time of being financially viable.
Yes, yeah.
You have a sheep forever. The sheep becoming your pet. The things becoming your friends. And you have a cow, probably in 3 months of having the cow, 3 to 4 months, you may be able to kill the cow and save a lot of money when you really think about it. Because you're not spending that much. So your production, the amount of money that you will basically have, because you're not spending so much in that 5 months, you would be better financially than you waiting for 12 months for the year to take it, because a cow not going to, after a certain point, a cow not going to get fat.
Ain't growing no more.
Especially if you have it walking around. I mean, in those kind of cases like Dr. Cummings was saying, we have the cows in these nice conditions where, when the meat stays very, very soft, because they make them make a few little steps.
They can't go nowhere.
Every day they just have a short little way to walk around, and then they feed them right there, and they keep feeding them with high fatty food and whatever, high caloric things or whatever. That way it puts on more weight. But after about 5 months, 5-6 months, a cow not putting on no more weight. Where what it is what it is. It's just going to get the meat that gets harder. And especially with being out in the sun and doing all this walking and stuff. So it's not financially viable anymore.
But I'm sure there are optimal production times and cycles for all these things.
Yeah, just to consolidate that, it's like ring broilers, right? Once every 6 weeks.
Oh, I was going to come to that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, well, you can, but
It makes sense. You're just feeding them.
But it costs you twice as much to put on a pound of fat than to put on a pound of meat.
Yeah, yeah.
So once the animal reaches that reproduction, like pigs, once they reach 6 months, it should be slaughtered. And then after that, the rate start decreasing.
Okay, 6 months.
Okay. So those little bits and things.
But how widely understood are these things? Really?
Most farmers know already. They've done a lot of research.
Okay.
And through a lot of technical help, a lot of farmers know already. Some of them are a little behind time in terms of they slaughter. Some will probably slaughter about 8 months, or they will wait until they find they have that desired weight to slaughter.
Oh, so they're for the wait. Okay.
Yes, so they were kind of hold on for a little bit. Okay, then we should be started at 6 months.
But then the opportunity cost, because the amount of fee they're taking for the additional £3 they're looking for.
So those are some of the stuff we will discuss with them, you know. And especially breeding is another thing. So some farmers will kind of like, okay, no, I cannot wait until she okay, I have 2 months, so she can. So by the time they do it sometimes, when they should have been getting 2 liters a year, they get 1 a year.
But this is supposed to be a science.
Yes, it is.
But the thing about it is, what they don't understand is the financial implications of all of this.
Well, definitely,
Yeah,
So
because
like
all of this are financial impact.
So like we will go to a farm, right, and you have pigs. So the ratio is 1 bull to 15 to 20 sows.
What?
Right? It's like a happy life, right?
Happy for the happy life.
But you would go to a farm where a farmer has 12 pigs, you have 5 sows and 6 bulls.
Yes, I've seen that.
Right? So really and truly, if you're not selling piglets, because
Right.
if you're selling piglets, somebody comes to buy a pair, they want it from.
They want one each. Right.
So that's okay. You can have 2 bulls,
Right.
and that's your plan.
Right.
But if you're planning to just fatten and
It
sell
doesn't
out,
make
you
sense
don't
having
need
so
all
many
that.
bulls
So when you really check it, you're giving each bull 4 pounds of food a day.
for nothing. Yeah. So you have to consider when you're looking at debt, what makes money for you? What can generate income? I just have a few examples here: greenhouse, irrigation system, rainwater harvesting, as the case may be. Bad debt. Debt that doesn't make sense. Borrowing money for things that don't have value. Like borrowing money to go away. But we have to be mindful of debt. And then the difficulty then becomes when the important things come around, then you can't borrow because you already maxed out your credit all over the top. Bookkeeping. How many of you keep records for your business? So bookkeeping is a process of tracking your financial transactions. Yeah? That's all it is. Yeah, tracking.
You know what?
It's a task. It's a task. Yeah? It's a necessary evil. You even have to know about your account and why it matters. So the goal of bookkeeping is to make sure your accounts are up to date, your records are up to date, so that you can provide information to get a loan, to get a grant or technical assistance. It's unfortunate that there are a lot of technical assistance programs that pass through, but a lot of our people can't qualify because they have nothing to show. There are times that we try to assist customers to get some sort of assistance from CDB, or because sometimes most of these places have their technical assistance unit and they provide funding or even grants and that kind of thing for expansion but most of the times they ask for records that people can't produce. Yeah? So if for no other reason, think of it that you might be able to access free money. Yeah? And it gives you a clear picture of where your money is going. It allows you to track your customers and long-term planning. Started talking about recording, and here we're going to look at the cash book. So it actually records transactions on a day-to-day basis as they're incurred. Yeah, you could use an ordinary notebook, and it's up to you if you want to record them separately in a separate book, like incomes or expense, or together. But I recommend that you put them together. Whether you choose to do it manually or electronically, what you're going to be doing is the basis for all accounting transactions. So when you want a loan, even if you don't have something fancy, bring the notebook. Yeah, and we'll collate it from what you have. Record all transactions as soon as possible. These are some tips. Write on the receipts if you have to. You know they just fail. Yeah? So that you know what they're for. Record money you take from the business for personal use.
Yes.
Please do. Because you just forget. You get a child that was fair and then forget it. You understand? Write in the cash book their transactions that are paid for by cash. Record buying and selling on credit separately.
gives the sector a lot of joy today that we are addressing a very key component of the agriculture sector. We speak about farmers wanting to be businessmen and businesswomen, and fisher folks being likewise. And to do a business, you need to know what is happening. It's like driving your vehicle, you need to know what is happening on your dashboard. It's like living our life, we need to know what is going on with our sugar, our pressure, our blood count, all of those things. And so, how do we do this? We go to the doctor and they give us a form to keep records about our life. Our farms and our enterprise are life in their own self. And so, being able to keep records, to be able to track what we are doing, to be able to monitor and to be able to improve is very important. And so, I want to implore on all of us that this exercise here is commendable. This exercise here is at no cost to the participants, which is another important point. Because we see a lot of investment into advertisement and promotion and so on, but the investment into our human capital, into our building our capacity is very important. And it's very rare that you find financial institutions doing this sort of initiatives. Most time you see financial institutions doing these initiatives is a promotion to come to get a loan. This year is to build our capacity to better manage your business, whether or not we have a loan or we don't have a loan. And I think this is what is very important about this exercise. I encourage our farmers and our fisher folks in this session here to make use of this information that they received today, because information and knowledge, they say, is power. And so I want to challenge further as we move into the new way of life, that this record keeping and monitoring, it's not only on paper, but that we can translate this to some sort of online, a digital platform, whereby the farmers themselves, their children, others in the community, or extension officers can participate in this record-keeping exercise.
This is something for me which is very exciting, because ever since I've been working with agriculture and working in extension, it's one of the things I've always said, that farming needs to be looked at as a business. People used to say, and I think some people still say, when you can't do nothing else, you should be a farmer. Before time, as they said, they used to send the dunce child to be a farmer. You can't read well, you're giving trouble. We have a piece of land, go and plant something and sell it, you know? And we kind of grew up with this idea that that is who a farmer was. But now we have to come out of that and realize that everything in farming is a science, it's a business, it has social sides, farming encompasses everything. And so it is my great pleasure to be part of this, this forum here today. And we assure you that everything that we learn here, what we experience here today, we will take it further and bring it to other farmers, other extension officers. And as Minister said, we will ensure that we make our agricultural sector something successful.